Okay, so have you ever had one of those like weird, super specific memories from when you were a kid?
Yeah, totally.
Like something that seems small but brings back all these kind of intense
Oh,
feelings?
yeah. All the
It
time.
makes you wonder, like, was it just me or was that actually messed up?
Yeah, yeah.
And then, you see these trends online and you realize, oh, wait, other people have those same weird memories.
Right.
Like, that's happening right now with this whole Pink Tote Mom thing on TikTok.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
have you heard about this?
I haven't seen that one.
People are sharing these stories about these little interactions they had with their parents.
Okay.
That, looking back, they're like, whoa, that was some serious emotional manipulation.
Huh.
So today we're doing a deep dive into
Right.
this whole Pink Tote Mom thing. We're using this article from the Daily Dot. It came out November 19, 2024.
Okay. Interesting.
It's wild because it starts with this one viral TikTok video. This young woman, JC, talks about this huge argument she had with her parents. And it all started because her mom asked her to put the pink things in her room.
The pink things.
Yeah, like it's so vague, right?
Yeah.
And on the surface, it sounds kind of funny.
Hmm.
But the way JC describes it, it's like her mom just explodes with anger
Whoa.
out of nowhere, right?
Yeah.
And then her dad jumps in, like backing her mom up.
Yeah.
It creates this feeling of being totally ganged up on.
Oh, wow. I see what you mean.
It's like, even though it's about something so small and random, that power dynamic just totally shifts the whole situation.
You're so right about that power dynamic. That's super important. What's really interesting here is that, like, it often does start with something that seems small, like in this video. It isn't always about the actual thing that happened, but like the patterns underneath. And this is where emotional manipulation comes in.
Okay, so break that down for us. What do we actually mean by emotional manipulation? Is it always on purpose?
That's a great question. And honestly, even researchers don't fully agree on that. But Healthline, they define emotional manipulation as using tactics like things like invalidation, gaslighting, guilt trips. Even, sometimes it can be aggression
Wow.
to like control someone's emotions and get them to do what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And about the on purpose part, sometimes it definitely is like super calculated.
Right.
But a lot of times it's more like these unconscious patterns that people learned when they were growing up.
So it's not always like some evil mastermind.
Right.
Sometimes it's more like they're just doing what they've always seen. Maybe they don't even realize how it affects people.
Exactly. But no matter the intention, emotional manipulation can have a big impact on people. And the really tricky thing is these tactics can be super subtle.
Yeah.
You end up feeling confused and doubting yourself, and a lot of times you just blame yourself.
And it feels like, going back to that power dynamic, it's even more intense when it's between a parent and a kid.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, as kids, we need our parents for everything. Love, support, just feeling like we're okay.
Absolutely. Children are like hardwired to want their parents to be happy with them.
Right.
So when a parent uses those tactics, even if they don't mean to, it can make a kid feel scared, obligated, they feel guilty, like all the time.
Yeah.
And that can make it so hard to set boundaries, even when they're adults.
And the article talks about these other examples, and I was reading them, and I was like, whoa, wait a minute, what?
Really?
Like, one was about this person whose dad woke them up at 2 a.m. for ice cream.
Oh my gosh.
And then got mad when they weren't, like, super stoked about it.
At 2 a.m.?
Right.
Wow.
Like, you're half asleep. What do you expect?
That is such a good example of how these little things can be manipulative, like waking someone up at 2 a.m. just for ice cream. It's just weird, especially for a kid. It puts them in this spot where their normal reaction, which is probably being confused and sleepy,
Yeah.
is met with anger. It's super confusing.
Sends such a mixed message. Exactly. It makes the kid think, did I do something wrong? Or should I be more excited about this?
Yeah.
And over time, those interactions can really mess with a kid's confidence and their ability to just trust their own feelings.
It's almost like they're being trained to put the parents' feelings first all the time.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And that's why it's so important to learn about these patterns, because they often happen in these subtle ways. And it can be hard to see what's happening, especially when you're in the middle of it.
There was this other one that I remember about someone whose mom would make these big plans for the whole family.
Okay.
And then if anyone even suggested doing something different, she'd just totally lose it.
Oh, wow.
Again, it's all about control, right?
Exactly. It's like setting it up so that any change to her plan is met with this huge emotional reaction,
Yeah.
makes it way less likely that anyone will speak up in the future.
And you're always, like, if you're a kid, you're always on edge, right?
Yeah,
Wondering what's going to set them off, like walking on eggshells.
totally. And that kind of environment can have a lasting impact.
Oh, for sure.
It can affect their self-esteem, how they handle their own emotions, even their relationships as adults,
Right.
because they learn that saying what they need or disagreeing can lead to these unpredictable bad reactions.
So remember JC, the one who
Yeah.
started the Pink Tote Mom thing?
Yeah.
Well, she actually later said that her mom isn't abusive.
Oh, interesting.
Like, there's this understanding that, yeah, maybe these things aren't meant to be harmful,
Right.
but they still affect people.
That's really important to remember. Like, sometimes things go viral and it makes complicated things seem too simple. We want to raise awareness about emotional manipulation,
Right.
but we also have to realize that everyone's relationship is different.
Yeah.
We can't just label people based on one thing.
Right. Not every mom who asks for help with her pink tote bag is trying to control you.
Exactly. It's also important to remember this isn't just about moms. Emotional manipulation can happen in any relationship.
Yeah.
Parents, kids, couples, friends, even at work. It's all about noticing those patterns, understanding what they do to people, and learning how to deal with them in a good way. It's crazy how many people relate to this whole trend, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it shows that emotional manipulation happens way more than we think. And just realizing that is huge, even if it wasn't intentional.
That's so true. It's not about, calling people out or saying they're bad or whatever. It's about understanding how things work and figuring out how to communicate better.
For sure. And one of the biggest things you can do is start setting boundaries.
Right.
Like, be really clear about what you need and where your limits are, and then, actually enforce them, even if it's hard.
Which I bet can be super tough,
Yeah.
especially if you're dealing with someone who's used to getting their way or who, might freak out if they feel like they're losing control.
It can be really hard, for sure. And honestly, it takes both people changing how they think about things.
Yeah, I was thinking about some of those TikToks where people are actually trying to have those conversations with their parents,
Right.
trying to say, hey, when you do this, it hurts, or I need you to respect my boundaries. And it's amazing. Sometimes it actually works. You see parents apologizing, admitting they messed up, even trying to do better.
Those are the best. They really show that change is possible. It's all about being open and trying to see things from the other person's side.
But let's be real. Not every conversation is going to be that easy.
Oh, totally.
Breaking these patterns is hard, especially if they've been going on for years and years.
Yeah, it can take a long time. And you have to remember that not everyone wants to hear feedback or change their ways.
So what happens then? What if those conversations don't work?
That's when talking to a therapist or counselor can be really helpful.
Okay.
They can help you figure out how to have those conversations, how to set boundaries, and just process everything you're going through.
Because even if you, intellectually understand what's happening, it can still be really emotional,
Totally.
especially with family.
Absolutely. And sometimes the best thing you can do is step back from the relationship,
Yeah.
at least for a bit, just to take care of yourself.
I bet that's a really tough choice.
It definitely can be. But you deserve to be treated with respect, you know? You have the right to take care of your own mental health. And sometimes that means getting some distance or even ending the relationship if it's too toxic.
It's heavy stuff for sure, but I think that's why this Pink Tote Mom thing is so important.
Yeah.
It's helping people realize they're not the only ones going through this, giving them words to describe what they've been feeling.
Exactly. And it's not just about recognizing the patterns, it's about understanding how those experiences affect us in the long run, like how they shape how we see ourselves, our relationships, our mental health.
Yeah, so many people have probably had those moments where they felt like something wasn't right, but they didn't know what it was. And now they're seeing these TikToks, and it's like a light bulb moment. Suddenly it makes sense, all that confusion they felt years ago.
That's what awareness is all about. And it's never too late to start setting boundaries and taking care of yourself emotionally, no matter how old you are or what the relationship is.
And those boundaries don't have to be these big dramatic things, right?
No, not at all.
It can be something as simple as saying, I don't want to talk about this right now, or I need a break.
Totally. It's all about learning to say what you need clearly and respectfully, and recognizing that setting those boundaries shows self-respect. It's not being selfish.
Like you were saying earlier, It takes a change in mindset,
Mm.
both for the person setting the boundary and the person who's used to crossing them.
Exactly. And those changes take time and patience, but they can really make a difference.
So I'm curious, what's standing out to you the most as you listen? Did any of these stories bring back a memory or a feeling? Maybe you're looking at one of your relationships differently now. It's kind of wild how one little trend can make people think so much about their own lives.
Right. Sometimes you just need something to like wake you up and show you the patterns.
And I think it's important to remember that emotional manipulation, it doesn't always look like some big dramatic scene. It can be these small things that are hard to notice unless you know what to look for.
Yeah, totally. It can even seem like the person is caring or worried about you, or even that they love you, but underneath, it's still about them trying to get you to do what they want, even if it hurts you.
So how do you tell the difference, like, between someone expressing their emotions in a healthy way and, when it's crossing the line into manipulation?
That is the million-dollar question. One thing to think about is, how do you feel after you talk to that person? Do you feel respected, like they listen to you? Or do you feel drained, confused, or guilty, like you have to walk on eggshells around them?
Those are such good points. It's not just about what they say, it's about how it makes you feel. Because sometimes, even if their words sound okay, something just feels off.
Yeah, you got to trust your gut. If something feels manipulative, even if you don't know why, pay attention to that.
It's like we need to build this, like, internal radar for manipulation. Learn the signs so we can protect ourselves.
Exactly, and you can totally do that. It starts with awareness, like learning about those tactics, like invalidation, gaslighting, guilt trips, all that stuff we talked about. And then actually practicing setting boundaries, even in little ways.
So, okay, let's recap for everyone listening. What are the big things we've learned from our deep dive into this Pink Tote Mom thing?
Well, first of all, I think this whole thing has shown us that emotional manipulation happens a lot, especially in families. And it often comes from these deep-rooted patterns we might not even realize we're acting out.
Right, so it's not always like they're trying to be mean.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's just not knowing better.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important to be able to talk openly about this stuff. It brings those patterns out into the open, where we can start to really see them and choose to do things differently.
Totally agree. And another takeaway is we have to understand how emotional manipulation affects people long term. Like, it can mess with your self-esteem, your relationships, your mental health.
Absolutely, like we talked about, those experiences can change how you see yourself, how you connect with people, even how you deal with disagreements.
For sure. But I think the biggest takeaway, and the most hopeful one, is this. Recognizing these patterns is the first step to changing them. When we see those patterns in our own lives, in our relationships, it gives us the power to break free.
And it's about letting go of blame towards yourself and other people. Because at the end of the day, if we want to build healthier relationships, it takes understanding, compassion, and being willing to learn and grow.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And it leaves us with a powerful question to think about. How can we, in our own lives, learn to communicate in healthier ways?
Mm.
How do we break those cycles of manipulation and build relationships based on honesty, respect, and taking care of each other's feelings?
That's the real challenge, isn't it? And it's worth fighting for, not just for ourselves, but for the next generation, too.
I love that. That's the perfect way to wrap things up. It's not about pointing fingers at all the pink tote moms out there. It's about each of us taking responsibility for how we talk to each other, how we treat each other, and what kind of legacy we want to leave behind. So keep those conversations going, keep thinking about this, and keep choosing healthy communication, because even small changes can make a huge difference.